You know, that's what Bernie is. I think they're the only ones that are in Congress that are openly socialist Democrats. But well, actually, Bernie's an independent.
Yeah,
socialist.
He's not a Democrat at all.
Yeah, he's an independent, even though every time he tries to run for president, it's on the Democratic ticket.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've said it before. I'll say it again. Anybody that's listening, socialism is always bad. It's never worked. It never fucking will work because it's based on a false premise and. What the fuck's his name? Marx. Karl Marx was an idiot. No, he was. In theory, in a utopian society, which they didn't have in Germany in the 1800s when he was alive, so I guess he just made the shit up. But in theory, in a perfect society, maybe.
Lots of things work in theory.
Yeah. But in the real world, the shit has never worked. Every time it's been tried, it fucking fails horribly and bloodily and violently.
Everybody wants to be rich. Everybody wants a perfect body. Everybody wants the war to end. Shit's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and every time socialism has been tried in practice, it has ended violently. You know, and there's not a single. Oh, actually, no. I'm sorry. When the USSR fell, that was the only time in history that a socialist society had ended and converted to democracy. And I'm using air quotes when I say that. But the only time that it hasn't been ended violently. You know, look at Venezuela is just in tatters. Yeah. Cuba's still a socialist thing, I think. So yeah. And even the USSR, when it went to socialism, it was because of the Bolshevik Revolution.
Okay, so how do you? And I'm not saying I'm for or against. I'm playing devil's advocate.
Okay.
How do you explain the successes that countries like Norway and Sweden have?
Well, two things. Number one, they're not socialist countries, and number two.
So what are they?
They're democratic countries.
They're democratic socialist countries.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
I've seen interviews with both of their prime ministers where both of them say, "We're not a socialist country. Please stop saying that."
Right, but they have the kind of socialist programs that progressives here are talking about, where it's not true socialism,
and they're having a hard time keeping up with it.
And what's their population?
Well, that's the other thing.
They're very small.
Yeah, they have like 10 million people, maybe. I think Denmark, I think only has like 4 million.
Those countries are like states here.
Yeah. And you can do some stuff on a small scale, but when you have 300 and plus million people, the shit doesn't work. You know, and yeah, if you research that talking point. If you research it long enough, you're going to come across several videos of their prime ministers saying, we have a couple of socialist policies, but we are not a socialist country.
Right.
So then they do have some policies.
Yeah, like their education and their health care, which is what I'm talking about.
And the education, I'm 100% of the opinion that all education from
I think so too.
Kindergarten all the way to as high as you want to go, assuming that you can pass entrance exams,
right,
should be free.
I think so too. I think education and healthcare should be socialized for the good of everyone.
Healthcare is a much more complex issue.
I agree, but I believe it's also a basic right.
Well,
and I believe education should be a basic right too.
Well, but here's what would happen.
But I'm not against capitalism and.
Well, here's the problem with socialized medicine, and it's more of a problem when if it's less of a problem if your medical school is free, because these doctors are coming out of medical school with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of student loan.
Oh, absolutely.
And I can tell you from experience that
you don't have to be a doctor to have.
Yeah, I've got $90,000 worth of student loans. I pay $800. I pay more in student loans than I pay on this fucking house.
Right.
You know, if you say we're going to socialize this and we're going to pay you X, and there's no competition there, you're not going to have people wanting to be doctors.
Right.
You know, and that's a problem. And you can't force them to be, because you are not entitled to my service
Nope.
as a right. That's just that's not how anything works. And when you start doing that, you know, you want the cream of the crop being doctors.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
but I do believe that there are ways to make sure everyone has health care, and health care can still be profitable for those providing it.
Right.
I mean, look at the private, like the drug industry. Jesus Christ. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
that's where I've made no mistake. I don't like socialism, but I think that big pharma and the medical establishment as a whole, right? I think those need to be price fixed, because there is no reason that a $2 bag of saline solution should get charged to me at $300 a bag.
But I really do. I think if we can make education, like you said, cradle to wherever you want to top out, we can make that accessible to everyone regardless of income.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's one of those things that should never have been.
Right.
And they tried to do that. What they tried to do with that whole thing is make it where, you know, you have some sort of prestige because you went to Yale, and Yale is $100,000 a year, and that's bullshit.
Are they the ones also have the really good prison reform?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing that I think, and this president has actually signed a prison reform bill that's supposed to be really good. I haven't read it, but yeah, we have the highest population per capita of incarcerated people. And that was because of, I don't know if you guys remember the crime bill of 1994 that set the minimum sentencing. That was that. And if I'm not mistaken, that was also about the time that private prisons started becoming a thing.
Private prisons are a scourge on humanity.
Yeah, they are. Because what you have is private prisons becoming a thing, and then Congress signed this 1994 crime bill that sure does look remarkably similar to a giant fucking kickback. So, yeah, that is a really big problem.
Yeah, I'm not down with the socialism, but I do believe that two things, education and healthcare, are basic human rights. They should be. They should have always been. And I believe can make...
And like the education thing, okay, to a bachelor's degree. Now, if you want to go ahead and get a master's degree or a doctorate, then that's on you.
No, I think if you want to pursue it that far, go for it. If you're going to... Because, like, we can't... You know, you can't have too many astrophysicists or whatever. You know what I mean?
Well, you can't saturate the
But
market.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, most people... Most people are not just going to go that far just because they fucking can.
I would say this, though. I wouldn't have all degree programs free, because then you're going to have a whole bunch of people majoring in goddamn gender studies that has literally no value in the outside world. The whole idea of that...
But I think it'd have to be to something specifically, not just some bullshit.
The whole idea of
degree.
making it free is to provide value to the economy and value to the economy and to the society without incurring a monstrous amount of debt. But if you can't do that with your chosen degree field, and gender studies is one, all of these general fucking stupid things that there's not a job for.
Well, like
those, if you want to do that, hey, cool. We'll pay for the core, but you gotta...
We've already dabbled in that because, okay, if you want to go to school to be an educator, if you work in a small, like, disenfranchised
community,
they'll pay off your school loans.
Yeah, definitely.
So I mean, the bare bones of the idea is in place.
Right. But those loan forgiveness programs are for very, very specific
things. Because it's things that give back, fill needs in communities, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, no, I'm not saying if you want to be a professor in underwater basket weaving that, you know... Yeah, that
you should have to... You want to waste your time, you get to waste your money too.
But I do, and I believe in universal health care. As someone whose family has a lot of genetic health problems, I've seen up close and personal, like over several generations, how hard it can be to manage some of this stuff. And so, I do. I believe, and it angers me when people are like, save the fetus! Fuck the adult! You know, it's like, I care more about people on the ground than I do people still in the womb, and I don't want babies aborted, don't get me wrong, but I don't believe we stop having responsibility to our fellow man once they hit the ground.
Right. The problem is, like, you have countries like Great Britain has universal socialized health care, and there are stories after story after story of people having to wait, just like you have to wait to get into
I have to wait
a
now.
Specialist. I know, and that's not right either.
But for them, they're like waiting.
Yeah, they're waiting
a
to
year
get.
or
Yeah.
something.
But I know people that live under that, and they do have to wait. But guess what? They don't have to wait as long as I do.
Well, that's because you go to specialists that there just aren't a lot of specialists.
Right, but I mean, I'm not the only one. And like, I know my grandmother, you know, she was a British war bride, so she was a dual citizen. Till the day she couldn't go anymore, she went back home. She would schedule trips once a year for all her like dental stuff and health stuff, surgeries, because she got better care there, and it didn't, you know, put her in the poorhouse.
Well, but then how do you explain this? And you can look this up online. We actually watched a documentary about it. It's called Medical Tourism, right? And the guy that did the documentary, he went.
Are you talking about the Big Mac guy?
No, this was a different guy. It might have been the Big Mac guy. I'm not sure.
Where he went to like China
He
or
went
something?
to Thailand.
In the hospital, and they did like
Yeah. And he went to this hospital in Thailand, and I mean, this was like a whole trip that he booked, and he went in there on, you know, like a Monday.
They have, you know,
And by-
rooms for you to stay in, like hotel rooms, and
Like you show up the night before, and he went from appointment 1 to appointment whatever on Thursday or Friday. Everything
it was
that
bam, 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 results.
It was all inclusive. He didn't have to wait more than an hour or two
was
for any
amazing.
results, and his total bill was like $500.
But that's the point. It can be done.
But this wasn't socialized. He paid all this out of pocket.
And that's fine.
But since it's competitive, they can do that.
Right. I'm not saying it necessarily.
Here, I think it's price fixed.
I just think there needs to be.
There needs to be some reform, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I've got all the answers by it,
Yeah.
but I can sure identify when something's broke.
Yeah, and our medical industrial complex, I think, is actually what the term is. I think there's actually a, what is that called? There's some sort of list that comes out every year or two, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically an agreement saying we're going to charge this for this, and they fucking price fix everything. And in Thailand and these other places, they don't do that. So they have competitive pricing, they have exceptional care, and they can do this medical tourism. And, you know, if your insurance reimburses you, awesome. You know,
I actually watched a documentary that talked about that, and I can't remember when it was or who it was for sure, but it was Congress, a senator, somebody basically made them do that. Made the medical industrial complex do that. Right?
okay.
Made them do what?
Put the list out?
Yeah.
Okay.
They didn't want to.
It's called like a blotter list or
basically,
something.
like what they did was like, well, if this is $5, let's tell them it costs $20, just to fuck with them.
Yep.
And then it stuck.
Yeah. And,
Only it fucks with all of us.
Yeah.
yeah, and like I said, I'm not a fan of price fixing. However, gasoline and everything in the medical industrial complex and big pharma, I think, are areas that need to be price regulated. You know?
Yeah. That's the one question I have with the coronavirus and all that stuff, the whole gasoline thing.
Okay.
At one point, oil was negative a barrel.
How does that work?
Now,
I don't
why
understand
in
how
the
that
hell
works
was
either.
our gasoline still $1.35
Well,
a gallon?
goddamn, Ross, they still have to process
Production
it.
costs,
care.
Ross. Goddamn.
But yeah, I remember that for like 6 hours, the oil prices were negative. I guess they were paying people to take their oil.
I mean,
because
damn.
no, what happened was they had barges full of oil barrels just floating
Sitting
around
there.
the Atlantic, and they were like, we're just, dude, I don't know, this isn't working though. But yeah, I definitely think that there is reform.
they're like, buy one barrel, get one free.
No shit.
Buy one barrel, get a barge free.
But we are over our time, so we are going to call